Hey guys, welcome to Rising Up Recovery. We're not in 100.9 WXIR today,
No, we're
but
not.
we've got Danny Hefner here and our guest Matthew over from Lotus Recovery. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Doing
Yeah,
very
no
well. Thank
problem,
you
man.
for coming on with us.
And we kind of connected just because we saw some stuff on Instagram, and I was really impressed. So, what's up with this graphic design? You have got these great things on there under Lotus Support Recovery, and you did that thing with our collaborative one, which I
Yeah.
love. This one looks sick.
I saw that and my jaw dropped to the floor. First time it's happened in about 10 years. So
I'll be
great
honest,
job.
I was jealous and a little annoyed that you did that like in like 10
Yeah,
minutes.
you're like, Danny, why can't you do that for us? I'm like, I don't know how to do that. That's why we got Matt, you know?
Yeah, I guess, I don't have really a whole lot to do because I'm stuck at home, quarantining, sheltering in place. So I just found a way to exercise some creative juices and just went from there. Sort of just happened organically, but it's been a lot of fun.
Now, we talked a little bit, we just kind of bullshitted last time, and
Mhm.
I was interested in Chicago with the recovery community that you had out there. And it sounded like it was pretty broad.
Yeah, it's jumping out here. I mean, you can get drunk and high any place, obviously, but Chicago is a great recovery community. We've got 4,000 to 5,000 different meetings on a weekly basis. So when COVID happened, everybody was kind of, shoot, what are we going to do? All the L&O clubs closed down, and a lot of the treatment centers that had meetings weren't offering anymore. So that's when the virtual meetings really popped up and really have been great for the recovery community here. Didn't really skip a beat.
And I see some of the groups around here in Rochester. I'll see videos pop up on Facebook, like, home workout routines, people getting together to do the virtual chats. Do you think it's been the future in the next 6 months is going to look the same kind of deal for you guys?
I mean, treatment and AA, both alike, are going to have to adapt along with the rest of society, to the new normal, however long that's going to be. I think that AA will survive as long as they continue to follow those traditions that they were founded on. And I think that we just have to adapt. And I think that the Zoom and virtual meetings are going to be pretty much a common stay, or at least a increase for sure.
And no, I'm going to say the wrong term. It was the one that you like better, but for sober living housing or sober living, how have you guys been able to work that out, even with this virus going on?
So it's not the wrong term. It's just the common term, sober living. We call it supportive recovery housing. I think it places more of an importance on the mission at Lotus to thrive in recovery as opposed to just kind of existing. But yeah, it's been difficult for sober homes to adapt to this because a lot of them are very much like group home setting. So you got multiple people per bedroom. So it's really hard to social distance. But fortunately we have one bed per bedroom. So it's a little bit easier for us. But yeah, we're just kind of waiting for some things to open back up in due time to be able to continue to provide services and help people thrive.
Well, it's something I'm kind of worried about moving forward. I kind of want both your opinions on this, but we're looking at the recovery industry, and we can look at the government looking at that as kind of not a full necessity, right? So what happens when we come out of this, right? Specifically in New York, we're spending the most money we've ever spent as a state, and they're going to be cutting funding, right? They're already cutting schools. What happens if they start taking funding from us recovery people and hurting those people involved? How do you tackle a situation like that and keep going? Because I think we're going to have a big uphill battle moving forward with this kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. So, 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience mental illness. So I assume those statistics are going to go up after we get out of this situation. So it's going to be a huge,
right? Yeah.
I guess it would be, you're also thinking about treatment centers getting money too in New York?
Well, think about state-run treatment centers, right? The state's going to be looking to cut funding where they can, and I think those are going to be one of the frontline sources to get funds cut. I really do. If they're already cutting school districts, what's stopping them from that, to be honest?
I guess that would be keeping up all those awareness campaigns and showing how difficult it is. Sadly, like last month, we had a 26% rise in people overdosing. There's more some counties are experiencing more people dying from the overdoses than they did from actually the virus. So I think the awareness campaigns and keeping that conversation up, and hopefully we've got the right representatives in there that are working to try to make sure that doesn't happen when they represent us too.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of that's out of our control individually, but I mean, I think you make a great point in the awareness. Right now in May, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. So I've been doing a lot of campaign social media wise to kind of, just keep that narrative going that maintaining your mental health is extremely important, just as important as physical health.
That was really cool. So Danny, last time that Matt and I talked,
Yeah.
sort of talked about the treatment. Now, do you start working on treatment for people with the drugs, or do you start doing it for people for whatever trauma or mental health issue is going on? I mean, and it sounds like it's difficult to do it in tandem sometimes.
Yeah. So another common thing is we call it co-occurring disorders, where your mental health is simultaneous with the substance use disorder. And 19% of US adults have that co-occurring mental health. So it's kind of like a chicken or the egg thing. Do you treat the trauma and then the substance use will follow, or do you treat the substance use and then the trauma will resolve? There's no real right or wrong way to do it. I think it just depends on the individual and kind of meeting them where they are in their own personal recovery. And that's what Lotus does, is we help them successfully navigate their individual recovery.
So tell me about Lotus and how that started for everybody else too. You had a really cool acronym that I won't be able to remember.
What, our core values?
Yeah.
Yeah. So our core values are love, open-mindedness, teamwork, understanding, and service. And those are informed by the social work core values. So I graduated with a degree in social work. So that's kind of where a lot of my mission and a lot of the values of Lotus stem from. But yeah, I think I get asked that question a lot. Like, how did you get into this field? Mm-hmm. And I didn't choose this. You know what I mean? It chose me through life experience, and it's just kind of where my life brought me. I could have continued to work in food service, but I wasn't really, improving anybody's quality of life by making a hamburger,
I've been there. I used to make hamburgers too for a living. You had to get out of it at some point. Yeah, absolutely.
Stop talking about food, you guys.
You're gonna make me fatter than I am. We can't do that.
I do. I think we used to use a lot, Danny and I. Listen. And I think I still try to get that codependency going on with food. I'm like, all right, I'll sabotage him a little bit.
No.
We'll go to Red Robin.
Yeah, but you know what? You know what you sabotage me by sitting there being like, hey, I started keto again and my life's miserable. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to follow
it. It is terrible.
Yeah. I was happy about it, though. I was happy that you were miserable being on this diet.
That's funny. Red Robin was my last job before I got into the treatment field.
Get out.
Yeah.
Was it the Blue Ribbon Burger? Was that
Tell us.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the more important burger. Tell us the ingredients of the whiskey, bacon, river, barbecue, whatever burger they got. I want to know.
I have no idea.
Oh, Jesus, Danny, that's like a country song.
I forgot everything about that job the day that I quit.
Good.
Well, good. More power to you, man.
Yeah.
Now, we actually have a lot of stuff in common. So Matt and I were sort of talking about, some of the ways that what happens to a lot of people. Out of money, homeless. I had the same thing. I was down in St. Louis. And the worst part was I was doing a thing where I was working, but I was also homeless. But I was at this hotel, so sometimes I would have to stay in the rooms or figure a place to, to stay inside the hotel. And I'm thinking about it now. I wish I had known about some sort of recovery network where I could have gone over and had those opportunities, to stay somewhere. I didn't really want to admit there was a problem. Now, talking about the mental health issue, I know homelessness has been affecting Rochester big time. How is Chicago dealing with that with people?
Currently, COVID, or just in general?
Just in general, because I know it's been hard, because it's like you give people the help for the treatment, and then they're homeless, but there's so many underlying factors mentally for some people, especially veterans.
Well, there's a lot of risk factors for individuals who are homeless, who are also experiencing substance use disorders, because they just have so much less access to treatment and resources to even help themselves. So they're constantly in survival mode, trying to meet their basic needs, that they don't even come to the realization that they have to do something about their substance use.
It takes energy to just be around, just to be conscious, not stay in one area. I mean, I would never wish it on anybody.
Yeah, well, one of the things we talked about is how we were able to find a way to maintain our hygiene, right? You find the free guest passes to LA Fitness so you can get into the men's locker room. So you can
tell Danny about that.
Well, I'll tell you about that. I go to this place called Anytime Fitness, and they have the most beautiful showers you'll ever go in your life. I go there just for those. Unfortunately, I don't have a gym membership right now because of freaking quarantine. But yeah, I used to go in there all the time. First thing I do, I take a shower when I hit there. I go out, I hit the weights, I hit the treadmill, and I'd be doing my miles. I walk out sweatier than a pig that just got slaughtered. I don't know how to describe it. But anyway, so then I'd hit those showers again. And you know what? 2 showers in that place was the best thing anyone could ask for. So I understand that. Let's get the free passes to these places. Let's do it. You know what? I like it.
I mean, maybe. I mean, let's try LA Fitness on that. But man, that energy it takes also to figure out how you're gonna get food too.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. It's definitely tough to try and just find a way to. They're on a one day at a time mentality too, just like we are in recovery. But we can focus our one day at a time mentality towards personal growth, where they're just trying to merely survive. So yeah, food insecurity is a big deal, and homelessness and that definitely go hand in hand. And I have worked on the front lines with some large nonprofit organizations kind of providing those services. And one of the things I did was I worked for one of the large nonprofit organizations I worked with offered like an evening supper, and there was 300 people that came into that every single week. Damn. That's just like the River North area of Chicago.
Well, that reminds me of what we did with the Life Center, Jake. We used to go there and we'd volunteer, and we would be serving not 300, but close to 100 people. And it was a beautiful setting. We had live music.
It was hard though, because sometimes you have this money that people would either donate to us or we would just do out of pocket, and it was it was kind of humbling to see that. Wow, $100 does not go that far. We went to Little Italy and also had to do these meals and cook pasta and sausage. And we were out there at night, and I'm cooking. I'm like, damn, it's like $200 is nothing. We made enough for most people, but we think that for that next day, there's probably gonna be nothing for anybody.
Yeah.
And then there was that fight that broke out, and they had all those kids fighting in the middle of the street.
It was like a gang fight right behind us as we're leaving. What kind of atmosphere is that for good things to happen? First off, we have in our specific city, we have to clean the city first. Get rid of the scum that's layering our streets before we can really fully attack the problem.
It's tough though, because we got the dealers. I mean, they've become such an intrinsic part of just the landscape and the culture of Rochester.
Unfortunately, you can look at them as an important part of our, you just said infrastructure, but everything to do with that. They have a lot of buying power too. All the money they're getting, they're keeping a lot of shops down there open. It's true.
It's true.
Rochester wouldn't have an infrastructure without it.
Now, we're in Rochester, they've got a lot of legislation to do with letting people out who have small misdemeanors, the drug crimes. Is Chicago pretty hard on people when they do the arrests?
I think there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. It can be kind of a loaded question.
Sure.
Well, I mean,
I feel like a lot of it, like people, I think Rochester is just starting to leave that phase where they're blaming the addicts or people who are using substances. Yeah. They're kind of, that blame is leaving. That stigma is starting to settle.
Yeah, when you pose that question, I think what comes to mind, and kind of to piggyback off what you said, is that the way I feel that we need to address that is not punitively through, Department of Correction. Maybe in certain instances that's required, but I think for low-level nonviolent drug crimes, if you can emphasize an importance on treatment rather than incarceration, it would be a more beneficial outcome.
Can I ask you a question?
It would probably reduce recidivism too.
So you talk about petty drug crimes. What would you view as petty? A dime bag of marijuana? Do we consider a dime bag of crack? Or when do we draw the line? Because there has to be one.
Well, I mean, I think it depends on local, what they determine. I know Chicago has kind of decriminalized it to a large extent. What used to be a felony is now a misdemeanor. What used to be a misdemeanor is now just a petty offense. So yeah, I think it's sort of, there's some gray area there, hard to define, right? Similar to like driving under the influence of marijuana. How do you say, you can't measure blood alcohol content for cannabis. So how do you,
Well,
I think
actually they're coming out with breathalyzers that will track that. They're already actually tested at this moment for people.
I could never get that. I could go over there.
So there's something right there.
777s, but never smoke a joint.
Yeah, they're already tackling that issue. They'll figure a way. When there's a will, there's a way. That's what I see. I don't know.
Yeah, I did see that. So, like, we would just breathe into something, and then
and it could track it. I'm assuming it's a THC receptor, right? So the THC, I'm assuming the crystals and all that will sit in your gums just like alcohol will, right? I mean, come on, it's in your bloodstream. It is.
I feel like we're moving to the Minority Report thing with drugs and people getting pulled over by cops. I mean, I went in when I had probation. I had to check in for jail not too long ago. I had to put my eyes in this retinal scanner, and they would scan you, and they knew who you were from that. And I was like, oh, well, that's jarring to think they could do that. In fact, if they started doing that, inside a jail with just this little machine, I'm sure they could do it to people if you got pulled over. I know you wouldn't like that, Danny.
No, of course not. I went through a DWI. It was the worst experience of my life. I hated that dang thing going into it every day. I never will do it again because of that. You used to get mad at me because I wouldn't want to drink and drive. Damn, you've done it a million times. I go, I'm not doing it this time. Used to try to push me into that, but I didn't do it. No.
I want to do a quick shout out to Finding Jude Recovery Services and Training, by the way.
Yeah.
If you guys, it was really nice meeting Kelly Quinn and her group last week, and we had an opportunity to talk a little bit about you too, Matt, with Lotus, and some of the work you've been doing in Chicago. Do you guys have hope dealers out there in Chicago? Like people who clean streets with syringes and...
I mean, there's safe needle exchanges and stuff like that, and there's a lot of good training programs on administering naloxone and Narcan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've seen a lot more of that go on, especially with the opioid task force out here. They're really trying to show people, especially in schools, what to do in a situation if somebody does have that overdose and how to administer it.
Mm-hmm. There's a good program called Chicago Recovery Alliance. They do a lot of great work with education on how to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's awesome, man. Yeah, I got a question too. As far just regarding hope dealers, actually, you brought up if they're in Chicago, right? Now, what I'm not familiar with, you're more familiar with this than Jake, and Jake himself is more familiar with this. So I'd like you to elaborate, like how collaborative are they as a unit, right? Because aren't they all over the globe or all over the U.S. in almost every state? Is that not true?
I am not familiar with how widespread they are.
Huh.
Jake?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny because I looked up on Instagram, I looked up on Facebook, and at Hope Dealers, the name was like a few different places, Delaware, Florida. It sounds like it was just like a general name for something, but I mean, the idea is good. I mean, you clean up needles and you give people sandwiches and do some Narcan training, but it's kind of putting a Band-Aid over the same wound every day without really doing to the meat of the work.
Yeah.
I told Matt, preventative education, that's the next step.
Yeah.
That's part of the initiative that we want to do with Jude Recovery Services. Do those interventions, start early, and allow the opportunity for other people in class who are not in recovery to be able to voice their opinion on what they think should happen too.
Mm-hmm.
Helps with the stigma.
Yeah. And you raised the topic of harm awareness, which people have differences of opinion on. But safe needle exchanges are a pretty common form of harm reduction.
So what does the future of the recovery network look like that you would like to see? I mean, ours here in Rochester is obviously preventive education, and then having people who are arrested for small drug crimes, petty crimes, not have to worry about doing long-term sentences. Is there anything else that you could see that would be the best change for people in the future?
So I think it would there's like probably a multifaceted approach to that. You guys kind of already raised it in terms of finances and where funding is. A lot of times it takes a lot of private donation and fundraising to be able to provide competent services. But for me, it's an emphasis on community and how can we recover together, right? Where's my tribe? Where's my like-minded tribe? Because it's hard to pulling yourself up by your bootstraps is a really old-fashioned way to approach things.
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel like most people approach who are unfamiliar with what to do other than just sending somebody who's suffering from addiction to a drug treatment center. Mm-hmm. I know I had a phone call today with somebody who was asking about what they should be doing for their kid, and it was like, well, can we just get all the drugs out of the house? Do you know if that would work? It's like, I don't think so.
I mean, we'll find it, right? You can try to keep it from us, but we'll find it. It's the thing. That's what's hard for young people in recovery to grasp onto, is really realizing that they need it because they may or may not have hit the bottom. I got sober when I was 22 and everyone that I knew was still using. So it was really like kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah. Congrats on your time too.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Danny, I'm thinking you don't make a big deal about like years and stuff, do you? I mean,
no.
Like how?
No, I'm not. I couldn't even tell you when the last when my sober day is. I don't think you could either. I mean, you generalize it at a year, right?
I do, just because of the time that I got Allie.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's where I'm confident that I know my dog Allie, that I didn't use. So it makes me feel a little better. Is that something that you see, Matt? Some people don't keep a track of it. Some people do.
I think a lot of people like to keep track of it because it kind of gives them a barometer. But to your point, Dan, it's not indicative, right? Just because someone has 20 plus years doesn't necessarily mean that they're living a really sober life. Someone in early recovery could be doing a lot more for their recovery on a daily basis than someone. So, but there is a strong correlation between actively working in recovery for over a year and under a year. So those who stay in treatment and then step down through the levels of care the way it's designed and live in sober living for at least a year, there is a correlation between long-term sustained recovery. I mean, look at relapse rates. Relapse rates are between 40 and 60%, according to, who is that? NIDA, National Institute on Drug Abuse. So those are pretty stark odds that are already against us.
God damn. 40, 60%.
Yeah.
Wow.
Scary. So that's where your preventative education, I think, can really make a drastic impact, kind of get out in front of it, prevent that wound from happening so that you don't just have to place Band-Aids over it every day. You can actually prevent it. Right?
I appreciate that. Yeah, because one of the things that I wanted to talk about with the initiative is, allowing the students who are not in recovery, but are interested in addiction awareness to be able to help out people in their class, because Reclaiming Futures, which works with the Juvenile Drug Court, did a study on about 12,000 students, and they said it's not, the students have to get the drugs from somewhere. And all these students, about 93% of them reported that within the first week that they were offered drugs again.
Yeah.
And that kind of hurts, because it's like, now this is an initiative that might be able to look at, okay, how do we give accountability to other students and make them responsible for the lives of their peers by saying, maybe I shouldn't offer drugs to somebody that I know is in treatment, which is hard to do because that is such a way to connect. And Danny knows I worry about it, with my girls, because they're bored. They're bored. They're not able to see see their friends like they usually can. And if they do, it's a little anxious because they're going to be 6 feet away, hopefully.
And that brings up something that sits on with me, because we always talk about, the government making, you brought up punitive challenges or punitive, arrests or whatever you want to call them for drug dealers. They're decreasing. We're bringing misdemeanors to, non-criminal offenses. We're bringing felonies to misdemeanors. So isn't that giving the wrong message, right? Aren't we enticing drug dealers to go back out there and do the crime if we're giving them a smaller offense?
I don't think so.
Right.
I think that what it does is it gives the low-level offender the opportunity to reintegrate into society without sitting in a jail cell for a long time and then losing his job and losing his family. Large quantities are still penalized, but yeah. I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
mean,
I don't think it incentivizes drug use. I think it gives those individuals an opportunity to be introduced to an alternate way of living.
it sounds like you need the component that needs to be a part of that is some sort of re-education, but they would have to work
You
with
do.
the
It would
criminal
have to
justice.
be exactly. It would have to be integrated with the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system, with all due respect, does a horrible job of that. I don't think they give squat diddly about the dealer coming in and what he does when he gets out. I don't think they care. I don't.
Sometimes no, but think about it like this: someone who would get a felony, once you have that label strapped on you, think of how many less opportunities you have just in the job market alone, right? So if you can somehow get the felony to not be an issue for you, which is really difficult to do. So if, reducing some of the punitive measures and giving someone a second chance by not having to go through life with that, that F on their transcript.
That's right. I mean, I had a suspended position for my arrest, and then, of course, I got another felony later on. So, I wasted my one chance. Suspended positions, Danny. Remember, you get like one shot. You get through probation, they let you not have a felony on your record. Unfortunately, I screwed up and had an arrest while I was on it, and it's definitely affected me now so much so professionally because Danny and I have had to coordinate efforts for Next Door Auto, which is our business that we do separately from Rising Recovery. And it's just kind of being resourceful and having those opportunities to say, okay, I have a felony. How can I work around it? And it makes me do a lot of dancing I really didn't wish I had to do.
Yeah, it just closes a lot of doors.
Sure.
So
I mean, even at restaurants, I'm sure that's like one of the things that people worry about.
I will say that Jake is one of the outliers of that grouping. I mean, it's not a very high percentage that's coming out and doing great things with their life like he is right now. And I think it's an amazing story he has, right? I don't see that from everybody. And I think it's very difficult to say that we will see that moving forward unless there's a lot of changes, So, granted, it's an agree to disagree situation, right? In some ways, we're all right here, Could they get out and get a second chance to change? Yes. But 9 times out of 10, that's not happening, right? So obviously getting in there and fixing that's going to be what we need to do.
It's tough. I mean, they do have a STAR program in Rochester. They just started up with MCC, the Monroe Community College, which allows people who are in jail, who have sentences, not being transferred, but are in there for small sentences, 6 months to maybe a year, to get re-education and go out to places like Rochester Works and help find jobs and get the education they need. And when I showed up at Rochester Works to give a talk, and Danny knows I was kind of surprised I walked in, there was the sheriffs were there, and they had about 15 guys sitting there, and they were asking really good questions. How does this affect my education? Is it able to, what happens if I go over to a community college? Does it make a difference if I have a felony then? That's the kind of program I'd like to see.
Yeah, that's awesome.
One of the doors having closes is the ability to get financial aid too. Once you indicate you have a felony, you're not eligible for FAFSA.
And just so our viewers know, the only reason I was clapping was Jake has a story about a bunch of claps from a bunch of police officers. And, it just kind of rang a bell.
I hope you die today. Stand you. That's you have to excuse me 1 second. Ow. I can hear my dog, and I can hear she's been sick all day. It really sucks.
There will be playing some elevator music in the
trying to give some pills to a German Shepherd is not easy.
No, God no. Put it in her food. It works. Or
she's been eating too much, I think, lately. Like
her and I both.
She anything like her owner?
Now, man, we really appreciate you having on today. It was a good time. And could you give us the handles for your for Lotus Recovery?
Yeah, so it's at Lotus_supportive_recovery on Instagram and on Facebook.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back on because hopefully by the end of the month we have some people set up and we're going to be doing some little challenges. So it's going to be people in recovery or people working in recovery network that we have, and we're going to be talking about stuff that we feel might be a little more controversial. So safe injection sites.
And I was just going to say how we finish everything. Jake, I was hoping you didn't forget, but we like to tell everybody to, say one thing to anyone out there in recovery that you think would help them. You being in the field you have a lot of experience working with, us in that field. And I think you have a lot of kind words that you could say to somebody out there right now.
So you're asking what's one thing I would tell somebody who's newly in recovery?
Yeah.
The one day at a time. There's a lot of mantras, a lot of little slogans in recovery that I didn't like at first, but they've really started to hit home with me. Find your tribe, take it one day at a time, and basically for me, it's just give yourself a chance.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that, and I got to tell you, I like the acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. That was really cool.
Beautiful.
That really hit. I love when you see some people's stuff and you check it out. I like going through this one for yours because this stuff is positive and helpful. It's not just like somebody taking the pretty picture and posting it up. This is stuff that people can actually use day to day, man. So it's really cool.
Acceptance and mindfulness can be very powerful. But yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great to be here because Lotus's mission is to help people thrive in recovery. So any way to spread that message with you guys has been awesome.
Well, man.
No
Thanks
problem,
for coming.
Fist bump, man.
Well, anyway.
Man, that was really cool.
Yeah, he's really good, man. He's a really good guy.
Until I heard Allie start throwing up in the background. I heard.
No, she didn't. Is that what
she did. I don't even want to look. Oh, good God! Listen, I have the entirety of my other side of the bed over there. Nothing. I've got my rugs.
She threw up on the bed.
She missed the rug. She missed the hardwood floors, and she threw up in my camera bag.
I was more upset for Dawn than you at that moment.
Why won't you die?
I've tried. It doesn't work.
Dude, I gotta tell you, man, that was really cool hanging out with Matt. You can tell that's somebody. He has his own condo townhouse that he uses in Chicago with Lotus Recovery Services. He bought it, took a risk in a market that wasn't doing too well. Then he has that opportunity to say, I'm going to have people in with recovery supportive housing. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you know me, I'm the person that was against social media. Against it. Like I had a flip phone for the longest time. Now we're able to connect with people on Instagram who are all over the country. Matt's from Chicago. We got somebody else coming on from Pennsylvania next week.
How many followers you got on there again? What's the handle, Jake? For everybody out there?
Yeah, so if anybody wants to go to Rise Up Recovery, it's on Instagram. You'll see it. Got the big laurels on there. So we've got 1,152 followers. And we got really good people, and they participate a lot. If there's anybody else who ever wants to hit us up on there, please don't hesitate to ask. We love having new guests on. And as soon as we get back in the WXR studio, we're going to have a lot more access to resources. I feel like I like doing Zoom with you. It's cool. Yeah.
We're going to keep doing Zoom.
We're going to keep doing Zoom. We're still going to be on YouTube.
We're going to Zoom. On Zoom.
But man, I gotta think about this now. This is when I was talking about the girls and drugs and stuff. This is like the perfect time for kids to like experiment, isn't it? Like you're stuck inside all day, almost. You're stuck inside almost all day. You can meet your friends, but you have to socially distance. However, you're bored as fuck.
I don't know. I think kids are bored as fuck, as you say. I think kids these days have more to do than we did when we were younger. And why I
But
say that
not as
is
grateful for it. That's the thing. Like,
no, they're ungrateful little. Most
day.
kids are ungrateful little shits. Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
I will say it right on the record.
But not Elise and Sidoni.
Anything, they're beautiful girls. They're lovely, and Jake, you do a wonderful job with them. Okay. However,
thanks, man.
The majority of the generation before me sucks. You guys suck. Wake up, all right? Because I will sit there and look. You will have your heads in your phones for 8 hours out of the day. You can't remember a phone number if your life depended on it. All right, you don't know who Ed and Eddie is. You don't know who SpongeBob is. You don't know who all these great cartoons are that we grew up to. And you know what? You don't know how to build a fort. You don't know how to fix a car, change your oil, change your tires. Get with the program. Come on. That's my rant. Do something productive.
I like the rant. But here's what I feel like. Yeah. I feel like everything's supposed to be done with TikTok. It's like 10 seconds. I always see people doing like the dancing and stuff. It's like, I don't think kids even have patience to do drugs anymore.
Listen,
maybe that's
number one. If I had a daughter, all right, and she was not over 18 years old, she's not putting anything of hers on a camera for other people to see. That's just not happening. And the fact that parents out there let this happen, I want to slap them inside the head sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. I think that's obnoxious.
It hits home because I've got to think about kids using drugs, and we're talking about adolescents because we're looking to partner up with Jude Recovery Services with Kelly Quinn, and part of my feeling is if we're helping out students and adolescents, I honestly don't think I'm that in touch with the kids right now to know what they feel about drug culture. Before I knew what it was, like it was cool to use the drugs a little bit. I mean, I was at that point, that tipping point where it's like, if you sell the drugs, cool. If you're using the drugs, maybe not. There was a balance between the two.
I actually think I know. I think there is a big influx in like rape drugs right now, specifically in our area. And I'm talking not the city of Rochester. The city of Rochester is the city of Rochester.
But like in general?
I'm talking about the, Penfield, Brighton, Pittsford, all them. They're all into the psychedelic crap now, the mushrooms.
Get out of here.
I swear, because they're idiots. That's why. That's why, Jake. But honestly, I listen. The EDM music, it kind of came up and about. I mean, it was there, but it got big, right? As we were getting out of that phase, right? And that was the rave era. I'm telling you. That's what I think it is.
I had a past relationship with somebody who was in that EDM shit, and
I hated it.
The culture was the drugs. It was like, oh, I'm not a slut. I just like the party.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, but then I heard from somebody that if you go to one of these events, or most girls, if they go to college areas, like 1 in 8 of those drinks has something in it. It doesn't have to be roofie, but it has something in it. That's a large chance. If someone said, well, I'm going to play beer pong with you, but 1 out of 8 of these drinks might get you raped, I might kind of avoid that shit. And I think having these cultures that entice people with drugs, I mean, and surround themselves in the facade of having some sort of deeper understanding or appreciation or of community, it's not fair to people. And I think that's what kids are looking at now. I think if they're going to look at anything, it's like that. If I do the drug, I'm part of the community. It's like the Indians.
Yeah. If you don't do drugs, you are the outcast. That is 100%.
Native Americans using the drug and passing it around to each other.
So I'm not gonna lie. I had my rave era when I was in Brockport. You kind of went to a couple. You saw the bars I used to go to. I'd be tripping balls going to these places, dancing, and I didn't know how to dance. I felt like an idiot, but I did it anyways because it felt good.
I'm just imagining you're like,
ooh, yeah, the spirit fingers, whatever, I'll look at my hands and go. I remember the one time I did acid, though. I remember looking at my hand and seeing it go, whoo, whoo, and like back and forth and back and forth. I was like, whoa, it's happening, But, it's stupid now. I look back and just like,
all right. Well, let's get into one last thing here. We're talking about preventative education. Spoke to Kelly Quinn. She tells me that she's already having the opportunity to talk to students and go into places and make an impact at schools. I haven't heard about it before. I feel like it's something that if anybody's going to have a conversation with kids, and it's like an intervention when you actually go in there. I'm trying to think back. If I had that situation, would I have been okay with that, having some help from people? Do you think that's something that can be done at a school for an intervention? I mean, that is our plan.
Okay. Well, it depends on the environment of the school you're going into. 100%. I feel like it depends on the kid. It depends on what they're going through. You know, if they have abusive parents at home, that's causing them to get turned into this awful road to addiction, right? You know, they come home, their father's abusive. He's beating their mother. You know, maybe he puts the hands on the kids. Is this a kid that might be willing to, speak up about it? Absolutely not. This kid's beaten to a pulp every single day. You think he's going to come out and say something and risk that? No, he's not, right? How do you attack that? How do you get to those kids, the ones that really need it? You know, the ones that aren't scared for their life every day? Because those are the ones I'm worried about.
Which one?
The kids that are scared for their lives on a daily basis, getting beat.
I thought you were adding to that.
No,
Sorry, man.
No.
I guess. Oh, okay. I thought you said and the kids that you were.
No.
Anyways, yeah, it's hard because if you have, parents who use. I mean, that would be the scariest part. Parents who do use, trying to tell some of those people, you're fucking up. You need to do better. Here's how we're gonna do it. Not gonna happen.
And then the second you walk out the door, bam, bam. There goes Molly and Jake on the floor because he's a piece of shit. Yep. So, with that being said, I see a problem with hitting that group. I see other problems with the kids that we have today not being, socially accepted. They're not as sociable as they used to be.
It's weird. Everything. There is an element that is missing, but like they think they have.
Huge. Like I spoke about phone numbers, right? You used to have 10 numbers off the top of your head that you could remember for all your friends. And at least 5 of those, the ones that you really remembered, you still probably know those numbers today, right? But when you think back, if you were to call those numbers, someone was always answering that phone. Someone was always answering. They were going to be there for you, right? That was the society we lived in. Today, people put their feelings on social media. You know what? I don't care what you ate for breakfast. I don't care how bad your workday was. I don't care about your flat tire, right? I don't, it sucks that you had, you have to put it on Facebook. And we have these kids growing up in this world that's what they're showing people that's what we care about.
I told them about some dance thing. I was like, okay, I'll take just one I know how to do. They literally said that is so old. I looked at the date of it. It was from April 28th.
Get the heck out.
I mean, can you imagine that? Like, it literally goes over there, and the mindset between how much time has passed goes from like years and months. It's kind of like when we watch videos too, like movies.
It's unbelievable.
And people are like, "Oh, that movie's so old." I'm like, "That's from like 2008." I'm like,
how about the idiots that say, yeah, let's talk about time now. They look at the movie like The Irishman. There's people that wouldn't go see it because it was a 3.5-hour movie, right? I can't.
The patience is gone.
Patience gone. Obsolete. It's horrible. But besides the point, that wasn't the point I was making. The point I was making is everyone's putting their feelings on social media, right? They don't know how to rehearse their feelings in front of a real person anymore. They don't know how to talk about their feelings to their friends. They don't know how to do this because everything is put on social media. And it's a blanket mindset, because if I truly posted how I felt every day on social media, I'd look like I was a crazy person, right? That's how kids look at people these days. If they post something, that you should be telling your best friend or your second best friend, right? They don't do that anymore. And that needs to stop, And unless we change that culture, I think it's gonna be very difficult to get these kids to come out about it.
Huh. Well, that's a good way to talk about it, because you know what? If we do have that, and we do have the students who are interested in working in recovery services, say that I would like a job as a recovery advocate after I graduate. If it's okay if I also volunteer at the places that are pro-recovery activities around Rochester. Those are kids that are going to have patience. They're going to have good hearts. They're going to have a willingness to help. And I think a lot of the heart is gone for people. If anybody is on these shows or TikToks or whatever, why isn't there just one person doing the good thing? You know, it's like a nice good deed for something. How do you help somebody? How does dancing or do all this stuff do anything to help anybody? Maybe there's a way that we can add an element into that for some of these students. There's something that we haven't thought of yet that would be able to coordinate in an effort that would touch other kids' lives.
Yeah. Or maybe, you know, setting up something in the school that would make somebody see like, wow, what I'm dealing with right now really isn't okay. You know, there's no way for me to rationalize this anymore. You know, really nail it to the freaking bone. And you get kids to open up about what they're really going through. You know, maybe we can be the change that these kids need. And that's what I want to do. You know, I spoke about a lot of problems, but I want to be the person that leads that charge with you. And that's what we're going to do here.
Well, I feel like we had another good day today, and it was fun having Matt in. And I know
that
you're
was
doing
awesome, man.
Shopping. You're doing a lot of shopping. I know that.
I know he's out there in Chicago. Oh, me? Oh, God, yeah. I'm doing some. Are you talking to Matt or me?
Oh, you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I bought this really nice chain today, guys. So let me tell you about it. Jake convinced me to get it. It's 11 millimeter, 22-inch, Cuban link, 24 karat gold looking thing. You know, it's cool, and I wanted it. So
and it's a great chain.
I bought these really nice special community shoes. I'm gonna be waltzing around looking good, you know. It's all maybe not the waltz. Maybe the waltz was too much, but yeah, it'll be fun.
All right, guys. Well, we had a great show, and thanks for tuning in. And we look forward to having you guys join us next time.
Absolutely, guys. Y'all take care.